Hello, this is Raul Ramirez of the Catch Wrestling Alliance. Welcome again to our podcast where we help you to elevate your grappling and using that catch wrestling knowledge, we together can keep real wrestling alive. Actually, I kind of have a guest, but kind of not. That's why I have the headphones on today because I just needed to monitor the video that I'm going to share with you. It is an interview that I did. A couple weeks ago, but it's something that I wanted to really capture and share with the audience because, yeah, there's a lot of like confusion going on as to what catch wrestling is, and for many years, I basically try to describe catch wrestling as its own language or even its own type of like cuisine. I think one of our guests and good friends, Sam Young from the Southpaw Podcast kind of described it as like a cuisine, right? So if you have, say, Chinese food or Mexican food or whatever, you're not going to have someone do something like it's so much of its own thing that people can tell the difference, right? They can hear and taste, and they know the difference, right? So I've had a student. His name's Henry Lopez. He's been a student for actually even before the pandemic, right? But the gyms got shut down for a while, so that kind of put a pause on the training there. But he's one of my longer students, and he is like a really diligent student of martial arts. So he like went out and like trained, and not only trained, but like we teach at a MMA school. So he's taken all the classes, so the kickboxing, the jujitsu, and amateur wrestling classes. But he also he downloaded all the instructional DVDs and stuff from all these really famous grapplers and wrestlers and stuff. So he's kind of put a lot of information or synthesized a lot of information, and then after that realized that catch wrestling is still different from that. Right. So amateur wrestling, it branched off from catch wrestling, and then over the many decades, it became really its own thing. Also, same thing with jujitsu, kind of branched off from traditional Japanese jujitsu. It's become its own thing. And even no-gi is becoming its own thing that's different from gi jujitsu and whatnot. So kind of wanted to bring this to you. But first, we got a couple announcements. So yeah, if anybody wants to train with us here in Los Angeles, we will be at, of course, Fight Science MMA. We're still there. Also, we'll probably be adding another class at UCLA. So we'll be doing 3, if not more, classes. So it'll be like a catch wrestling specific class, Chinese kickboxing specific class, and then we'll be doing a mixed class where we combine the catch wrestling with the Sanda, the Chinese kickboxing, together to do a like basically an MMA class, which is like totally. I've always felt that the Sanda blends with the catch wrestling even better than say like Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, or even Muay Thai and amateur wrestling. So I got the opportunity to like teach a class at UCLA for that. So it'd be starting this coming fall quarter there at UCLA. Eileen, thank you for joining us. Yes, Eileen is asking if I do private lessons. Yes, so it would just have to be scheduled, and then we can totally find the basically find a time that works for both of us. So yes, of course. And here's my cat. If anybody's watching the Twitch or the YouTube, right? So my cat just jumped up here. So his name's Rufus. He usually just sleeps alongside me, but I guess he's really energetic right now. But so anyway, I was excited about the new class, and we'll be experimenting on basically having students mix the two styles that I personally believe are the best mix for mixed martial arts, or even for self-defense and stuff. So that should be coming pretty soon, just in a few weeks. The classes start right at the beginning of October. Let me see. Big James Radio, where is the gym now? So Fight Science MMA is located in what we call Mid-City Los Angeles. So it is in the middle of this giant city, and it is kind of near the 10 freeway. So basically, right in the middle. If you look at a map of Los Angeles, especially the southern part that's south of the mountain range thing. So if you're looking at kind of like the main part of Los Angeles, it would be really right close to the center of it, near the big street that runs north south is called La Brea, and then the street that it's on that runs east west is Washington Boulevard. So it is kind of right in the middle. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to this interview. So it's about 7 minutes long, but Henry himself will explain to you kind of like what he discovered just by training, and it'll be a little bit different than what you expect, or at least what a lot of people might be trying to get people to think of as catch wrestling. It might not be what you're thinking. Okay, so go ahead and play it here. I'm Raul of the Catch Wrestling Alliance. I'm here with one of our longer students now, Henry, right? Henry Lopez, right? So he had an epiphany recently, and I think it should be shared with other people, because I think he's understood like the difference between catch wrestling and other styles of martial arts. So you'd been watching like a bunch of different like instructional videos and stuff, and you also like here at Fight Science, it's an MMA school, so we teach jiu-jitsu and amateur wrestling and catch wrestling as well. So you'd been kind of studying all these different styles, right? And then like one day, can you kind of tell us like how you kind of realized the difference between catch wrestling and other styles?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of catch wrestling online that I don't really think is catch wrestling. And I always thought it was just takedowns, and everyone always talks about this brutal submission or something, and it kind of dilutes all of catch wrestling into this idea that it's just takedown, that it's just wrestling. It's just amateur wrestling with submissions, which it's most definitely not. It's way more than that. And one day I was watching you roll with one of the students, and I saw that every single time he was taking you down, you were always catching a double wrist lock and then riding it all the way through to a submission. And I thought to myself, oh, that's catch wrestling. It's not just the takedowns. It's not just the rides. It's the mat wrestling. It's positions that are inherently catch wrestling. Yeah, like say like in jiu-jitsu, you would have a half guard system, but in catch wrestling, there's systems in and of themselves, from say half hatch or double wrist lock. And watching you get taken down, but you were choosing when to get taken down and how to get taken down into a submission. That's when I really had an epiphany. I was like, oh, catch wrestling is way more than just takedowns or lock flows like you see on YouTube or something.
Yeah, even more like it's not just like strength against strength, right? And then
exactly.
Whoever the strongest can win. A lot of times there is like that mix of where it's like, yeah, you can give a little bit, and but you can kind of control the fall, right? So if you're being taken down, you can kind of control the outcome of that fall.
Yeah, and that's why I always thought, oh, well, maybe jiu-jitsu is more for me, because being a smaller guy, I weigh like 145, you're always shown that jiu-jitsu you can beat the bigger man. And in all these supposedly catch wrestling videos that I've seen online, it's always this 250-pound instructor doing it on like a 135-pound guy. And sometimes those moves don't work, but what I realize is that in real catch wrestling, you can outsmart your opponent on the mat. Yeah, it doesn't end when you get taken down. And it does take a lot of skill to get into those positions, but I feel like it's a martial art that can apply to everybody, not just the 250-pound catch wrestling instructor doing it on their tiny students.
Yeah, so when you do the jiu-jitsu classes here, do you like use some of the catch wrestling in those classes?
Yes, most definitely, because I don't know if it's just the general status quo or zeitgeist of grappling or jiu-jitsu, that some things are just not allowed. So never give up your back, just never give up your back. But in catch wrestling, there's a whole system that you can use from defensive position or referee's position, whatever you want to call it, where you can attack your opponent from there. And yeah, that's just opened up an entire new world of grappling to me. I'm not just always just going to my back. And if someone passes my guard, then I know that the fight's not over. Even if they have quote unquote my back, I can still attack from there. And I just feel like it just made me an overall better grappler.
No, awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I'm hearing a lot of stories about you. Right? People in the jiu-jitsu class, they have a real difficult time rolling with you. So I think that's a great sign.
Yeah, exactly. And all the stuff that you do hear about catch wrestling, like like the heavy rides and the how painful it is true. But to minimize it to just that is doing catch wrestling a disservice, because it is a very technical martial art. But it does take time to learn. I feel like you can't just learn it in like 6 months and say you're a catch wrestler. You know catch wrestling, but you're not a catch wrestler. And I think that's the biggest problem with catch wrestling. Most of the catch wrestling online is people calling themselves catch wrestlers when they're very good grapplers, but they're not catch wrestlers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you might know, or you might have seen a couple of things like from authentic catch wrestling, and then just taking that, or just learning those couple of things doesn't make you a catch wrestler. Right, it is its own kind of style or its own language, right? So I'm glad you realized that. Is there anything else that you kind of found that it's like a real a plus to your grappling, like just in general from catch wrestling?
Yeah, I feel like catch wrestling just has made me just not fearless in terms of just getting into any position and then wrestling my way out, and not wrestling in terms of taking someone else down, but say if I miss a shot and I get stuck underneath, I don't feel like I'm stuck underneath. I'm constantly attacking. Even if they have me in a front headlock, I'm constantly attacking. If they're going to my back, I'm constantly threatening submissions, double wrist locks, even if they're on my back. I just feel like it's made me a more dangerous grappler and just more well-rounded overall.
All right. That's really good to hear, because actually that was something that when I trained with Billy Robinson privately in Arkansas, that's how he wanted me to coach, because he felt that if the students didn't know the mat wrestling stuff, all the ground wrestling of catch wrestling, then they're gonna fear doing takedowns because they'll end up on bottom, they'll get smashed, and they won't know what to do. So now, you can even you can be fearless going for a takedown, because if it fails and you end up on bottom, you'll still be all right, right? Is that how you're feeling?
Yeah, most definitely. And I feel like even if I don't get a takedown, even if I get taken down, I can wrestle my way back up. And if I keep getting taken down, the person that's taking me down is exerting a humongous amount of energy. And eventually I will catch them in something, a double wrist lock, or I'll roll them, or I can hit different things from quote unquote defensive positions, what they would say in jiu-jitsu, where they're on my back or something. And I can attack from those positions where they're exerting strength and I'm using more technique to try and get the pin.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right, cool. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know we got to get out of here, but is there any way to say if anybody wants to find you online, is there Instagram or anything?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at HenryXEdge. You can just DM me, want to talk grappling, catch wrestling, pro wrestling, whatever. Yeah, you can find me on there.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully everyone enjoyed that. Hopefully it kind of gave a better, at least from someone else's perspective, stuff that I've been trying to explain for the longest time. Everything is different, and I think people, there are a lot of people online that this talk reminded me of a lot of people online saying like, "Oh, it's all grappling," right? But then they wouldn't necessarily say that when it comes to like a striking art, like boxing or kickboxing. It's all striking, right? So that is one thing. Actually, I'm going to take this off here so it helps me to concentrate a little bit better here. All right, so I hope that helped kind of clears or make the idea more clear that catch wrestling is its own style and not everything is just grappling. That it just catch wrestling again, it's its own language. It's its own cuisine, right? Its own style of doing things. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the next comment. So Eileen put in another comment. It says, this is why it's so important to expose yourself to different vernaculars of grappling. Always got to challenge your own assumptions about what works. Yes, I think this is true. I think there's a lot to that though. So it's like, yeah, ultimately you have to like find a lot of the techniques that work for your body type, because there's some techniques that work really well. Like say if you're a taller wrestler, right? There's some takedowns that are spectacular. They can work for like someone who's shorter or whatever, but it'll definitely be different, like a different scenario that you would probably want to try to execute some of these techniques. So a lot of them really work, but yeah, you kind of have to test them out in different scenarios, different times. Like if it doesn't quite work for you at first, so you definitely want to try them out for several times before you give up on them, right? Also, you definitely want to kind of like see like how other styles do things, right? So it is good to kind of expose yourself to different styles so that you can understand how to apply your techniques to their common reactions, right? So how to just get that toe hold when they try to get you into half guard with their shin across your chest, like a Z guard, or these types of different things that are pretty common, right? But a lot of times they're not thinking in a catch wrestling kind of way, so you can counter a lot of common positions of nogi jiu-jitsu with catch wrestling stuff, like especially like toe holds and stuff. Gridiron Masters. Billy Robinson said that the triangle predates jiu-jitsu. He said there were old books in Europe that illustrate the position. Okay. Yeah, well, that's the thing there. There's even, like in ancient Egypt, right? There were paintings of all these different wrestling positions and whatnot. So it's like, again, grappling is like the oldest sport, or who knows what the oldest sport really was, but people have been grappling and people have been fighting and doing combat sports since the dawn of time, really. So yes. Yeah. So I'm sure we can find all these techniques that people are trying to claim are new. I'm sure it's probably on some cave somewhere yet to be discovered, right? So like we have wrestling in the Bible, in the Old Testament, or we call like the Hebrew Bible, is there, right? And then also it's the oldest book that we have of was civilization, right? The Epic of Gilgamesh. Again, it's like it pretty much almost like right at the beginning there's wrestling, right? So it's been there since the dawn of time. And yeah, there's so people spending time doing wrestling. I mean, they develop all kinds of wrestling techniques, grappling techniques. So actually, that kind of reminds me of like say online when you put out a technique and then someone says, oh, that's never going to work against whatever, against like some seasoned jiu-jitsu guy, or this is never going to work against a wrestler. But it's like a real technique. It's not like we're just like making stuff up, it's like there's like real stuff that's worked in real wrestling matches, real MMA matches and whatnot. It's just like when people make those comments, to me it just shows their ignorance, or they must be new to the sport. And actually several times these people have exposed themselves as like being like noobs, right? And just like keyboard warriors. So it's like a lot of times when you hear these weird comments, they expose more about themselves than like anyone who's like an actual expert. They're not really experts. All right, next question. Eileen gets good. I like the aspect of catch where, based on the matches I've watched, the pace seems slower and people are more willing to concede takedowns because of the lack of points. Yeah, it is like the way Coach Roy Wood in Wigan put it when I was there. It's like, this is one of the closest things, or the closest sports you can get to a real fight, right? So you might feel like And at first, you might hear that and think like, "Oh, what about MMA? Isn't that closer to a real fight?" Well, yes and no. So yes, MMA has strikes, and you can always like strike someone in a real fight. But again, it has like a point system. It has rounds and whatnot. So traditionally in catch wrestling, you go until someone wins, and there are no points. So who cares if you get taken down? You're not all of a sudden behind on points. In MMA, if someone can't finish you and they get a few takedowns, they're going to win the round, right? So then now all of a sudden you're concerned that, oh, they've taken me down, but they can't finish me. So you're all of a sudden you're losing in the eyes of the judges. Whereas in a real fight, who cares? It's not over until someone wins. So this is catch wrestling, or this is traditional catch wrestling. So someone is not a winner until they actually win, or either they get a pin or the submission, right? So um, going back to Eileen's specific comment about maybe a little bit of a slower pace, yes, because again, there's no real time limit. In our events, we have a 20-minute time limit. So you like you can use that as a strategy, right, to wear down your opponent, to see if you can't use the kind of like that wearing down or the making them tired type of strategy to get your opponent to fatigue so much that that you can then like move them around and get that pin, right? So this is one of the strategies that Farmer Burns mentioned in his writings a long time ago, back in Iowa, where he was saying basically like make your opponent do reps. If you can get them down underneath you, just push that head down. Go ahead and let them come up, because they're going to want to resist you, right? Once your head's being pushed down, then they're going to want to use all their back muscles and neck muscles to like fight back and get their head up. And he says, just push their head down again. Just do that over and over, and they're going to fatigue. It's only natural, right? Let me see. Next question. Grappling guy. Actually, I want to skip to this one. Necro Eric, are you live right now? Yes. So that was a quick answer. That was a quick question to get out of the way. So yes, Necro Eric, we're live right now. Let me see. Okay, let me scoot back now. Hold on one second. Okay, so going back to where we were. Grappling guy, big fan of your channel. Keep up the good work, brother. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for commenting. Okay, Eileen gets good. Means less emphasis on speed, power, winning over technique. Correct. So yeah, much more technique, right? Winning over everything, right? Big James Radio. I have used the shoulder roll from defense position you taught me countless times. Sometimes even if I can't get the full short sit out seatbelt. Yeah, you don't really need them to grab you in seatbelt, just as long as you can get wrist control, like so. But you definitely have to feel it out. Like if you have, like you don't. I guess if you watch our videos, right, if you don't really want to have like too shallow of control over their wrist, you want to definitely, like, if you have wrist control, see if you can't pull it all the way across your chest, right? So that's one of the things you're going to want to do before you try doing any of these rolls, and we call them far elbows, or so yeah. So just keep at it. Okay, Necro Eric, what are your thoughts on catch wrestling like UWF Japan? Example, Kazuo Yamasaki and Nibuhiko Takada from 1984. A worked shoot style. So it's not an actual fight, but a lot of techniques of catch wrestling are still used. So I was curious your thoughts on it. Okay, thank you for your question. Ultimately, I'm going to prefer authentic catch wrestling over anything, right? So it's some of these styles, even though they show off a lot of great technique, I would still prefer to watch like even a kushti match, right? So you have some Indian guys wrestling in a sand arena in India. I'd prefer that over some of these worked matches, really. That's just my opinion. A lot of people are happy to watch pro wrestling. I know a lot of pro wrestlers, and I do enjoy a bunch of these pro wrestling matches, but like our goal here is to keep real wrestling alive, right? And hopefully we can get people excited about the real thing, right? Real catch wrestling. So even though some of these matches can kind of show off some really great catch wrestling techniques and whatnot, if we can get people watching the real thing or excited about watching real matches, that would be the ultimate goal in my mind. Gridiron Masters. I heard someone use Josh Barnett. Maybe I heard someone say what Josh Barnett tapping to Gordon Ryan is a way of saying catch was beaten by jiu-jitsu. If the triangle wasn't invented by jiu-jitsu, then that makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, my cat is just going nuts over. Okay, let me sit. All right. Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily like that, because again, it's like it's definitely going to be going back and forth. And back in the day, right, jiu-jitsu and judo pretty much always got beat by wrestlers and stuff. So no, it's like sometimes you win some and you lose some. But yeah, you're right. It makes no sense. Eileen gets good. Does catch wrestling require a different approach to strength and conditioning from folk style due to the slower, more technical pace? Yes. But you still want to like have the explosive power when you say, like, if you have something locked in, like a submission hold locked in, and you need that little extra boost to, say, get your pin or get your submission, get the person to tap out. Yeah, you'll definitely still want to be doing the weights and still doing the training for explosive power, because chances are you're going to need it, right? Necro Eric. That's fair. Always curious on it, especially that UWF style where it's damn well near MMA, but it's work. I mean, isn't it? I mean, Eric, don't you feel it's a little disappointing? It's like when you find out that it is a work, and a lot of the matches in Japan of these various organizations, they were works, and some of them look very real, and I think people get, at least in my opinion, people seem to get really disappointed when they didn't know that it was a work, and then they find out, right? And then it almost kind of turns people off to it. But I mean, you have people have different reactions to it. Like you said, yeah, the appeal is certainly not for everyone. Yeah, so it's almost like I wish they would just make sure that everything is labeled like pro wrestling or it's a work, or I don't know, just as long as it's clear, then people can enjoy it. At least maybe me. Maybe I'm just talking about myself rather than I would enjoy it more, because I've enjoyed plenty of pro wrestling matches and stuff. And like I said, some of my good friends are pro wrestlers, and like I enjoy watching their matches, and I appreciate their abilities, their technical abilities, because some of them are really good, really good. So, but yeah, it's different. It's different. Eileen gets good. Do catch tournaments, events have weight classes, or since they tend to be so small, is it typically open divisions? Yeah, sometimes we've done it where we did have weight classes, like in our events in Iowa, we had several competitors, so we could have weight classes. Also, yeah, it almost kind of does depend on how, like, the pool of wrestlers you have. Also, you can do events similar to MMA events where it would be like, kind of like you'll have like a match, right? So two people, and it won't be a tournament style, or maybe you can do, or like what we did in Singapore in our event there, we had 4 competitors, and so we did a 4-man tournament. So you can, we've done all kinds of things like that, where it's like one-off matches or a small tournament, or we had larger tournaments with several weight divisions. But traditionally, it would be like if you had a coach that thinks that their opponent or their wrestler can beat this other coach's wrestler, then they would set up a match, and then people would go out onto the field in England, and then people would bet on them and whatnot. And that's kind of how it was more in a more traditional sense, where it was like, oh, I think my guy can beat your guy. Who cares about like their size difference or the weight difference? So that's why catch wrestling can be a little bit more flexible in that way. So yeah, one of our events, the second event in Iowa, it was more like an absolute tournament, but we had it be double elimination, so someone could maybe perhaps come back and win it. Ooh, let me. You guys are making a lot of comments. Let me scroll back real quick. Necro Eric, yeah, I knew beforehand, so I was able to appreciate the techniques of rings promotions and UWF Japan style because I'm a bit younger and I trained as an amateur Greco wrestler before learning about pro wrestling. My appreciation is very different. Yeah. Eileen gets good. Any events planned for this year or next year? Yeah, hopefully we can get something going like for before the end of this year. So that's the goal. That's the goal. So Eileen, if you want to compete, start training now, right? Grappling guy. Don't forget Jacob wrestling. God got his hip pretty good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Talking about the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament. So yeah, exactly. Wrestling's been around since the dawn of time. Necro Eric. I knew it was a work beforehand, but I can imagine if you think it's an actual fight, especially with how big MMA is in general in Japan and was in the 90s with Pride, Dream, and all them indie ones. Eileen gets good. The fight card approach sounds like a good solution to the problem of too few wrestlers. I agree. Necro Eric. I wish there was more wrestling in the Olympics. It's actually sad that it was nearly being considered to be removed. Yeah, it actually was removed, but people got together and protested hard, and it was. I believe that it was reestablished like provisionally or whatever. So I think it's still people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was still kind of like on thin ice with the Olympics. But like with that being said, then I kind of we'll see what happens. In a way, I still kind of feel like over the decades, if we still continue to do the Olympics, then it might even just shift to nogi. It might be like what's that? ADCC, like just shift to ADCC rules. Who cares about like whatever freestyle or folk style, freestyle or Greco? Just eliminate those and then switch to ADCC nogi because I believe now I think more people in the world do that, or like at least more people in the world probably do nogi than the amateur wrestling styles that are in the Olympics. And so I think if that trend continues, then they'll probably just wipe out both freestyle and Greco. Henry Lopez commented. All right, so thanks for making an appearance, Henry. There's no ADCC champ is passing the Olympic drug test. Yeah, exactly. Especially if they test for weed. I mean, at least, at minimum. Necro Eric. Greco is so fun to watch, though. That takes some power in the legs. Yeah, totally. You definitely you see those big, huge, like lifts and suplexes and stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, I think unfortunately, it still could be lost, right? So that'd just be my guess, right, over the decades, if we still do the Olympics, because there's even all these cities who host the Olympics now, they're also complaining just because it costs like billions of dollars, or like over $1 billion now to have the Olympics in your city. So it, people are not wanting to host it, or cities are not wanting to host it. So we'll see what happens. There are some changes that will probably need to be made, right? So we'll see what happens. Yeah, again, thanks Henry Lopez for commenting. Hopefully you saw earlier the video. There was like the full 7 minutes, so I think I won't play it again, or maybe we will, just for just so anybody who hears this or watches this later, just scroll back to the part where you can see Henry's full interview, basically talking about how he discovered that catch wrestling was its own thing, right? Actually, Henry, if you're still watching, let me know if you have any other comments. Is any other kind of perspective or points of view on these other things like amateur wrestling and whatnot? Jonathan Jimenez. Oh, 7 minutes of Henry Lopez. Do you want to watch that again, Jonathan, or did you miss it? Well, I'll play it. Like, don't like. I'll totally do it. I'll totally play it. Eileen gets good. Muay Thai is being considered for the Olympics, and to be honest, I'm not a fan. Just look at how the Olympic Committee neutered judo to make it less similar to wrestling. Right. So, they took out a lot of judo techniques, and so they want. I guess I don't know. Who knows what they want ultimately, but yeah, you see these different sports get neutered, right, because of the Olympics. So it's like they will become more, or they'll lose more of the martial art aspect, and they'll become more sport oriented. So it becomes like very different from the original style, or the original parent style, or the original parent version. Just like freestyle, how it came from catch wrestling, it's become far removed. Henry Lopez. I know what I said. No need to watch. Jonathan Jimenez. I said boo. Henry. Let me see. Yeah, Henry just replying to Eileen says, yeah, very true about judo. Rules dictate the style, and it's such a diluted form of the art than it originally was. Necro Eric, do you believe that Billy Robinson is a catch wrestling legend, as most pro wrestlers do? Oh yeah, because Billy Robinson spent the majority of his career in pro wrestling, so he also taught pro wrestling for the longest time. So yeah, if you're talking pro wrestling, yeah, and it's great to see a British wrestler, that's so well respected by Americans as well, and Japanese, but I mean, with regards to, like pro wrestling being so huge in the United States, it's great that people are respectful of him. So that is a very great thing. Yeah, Eileen gets good. Yeah, same with Taekwondo, sport karate, looking at old karate, TKD videos from the 90s when they're actually allowed to kick the crap out of each other instead of foot fencing. Yeah. And so, yeah, like it reminds me, say at UCLA, I have some Korean students that do have a background in Taekwondo, and then, a lot of them didn't know that you can actually catch kicks, and they think it's since it's not really what they do ever, so they think it's just impossible. But then if you learn the proper technique and timing, then you can totally do it. And it happens in other styles. It happens in Muay Thai all the time. So it's just not really what they are trained to do because of the dominance of the Olympic style of Taekwondo. All right. Yeah, keep on asking your questions. We can totally continue answering them. But hopefully you got a lot out of the video that I played. And also, if you did, feel free to, check out any of our other things, or you can support us by becoming a member of this channel. This channel on our YouTube channel. You can also, if you want to learn, and if you're not in Los Angeles or if you're not on the East Coast with my buddy John Strickland, you can join our online academy, the CWA Academy, at our website, catchwrestlingalliance.com. You're totally free to do that. So we appreciate any of it. And just like we were kind of talking about to Eileen, responding to Eileen's question, yeah, we definitely want to try to get some matches going before the end of this year. It seems like all the grappling stuff is back in full swing. So we want to try to have some matches before the end of this year. And so, yeah, any of your support will just goes to that, really. Necro Eric, cheers, I sub. Thanks for keeping Catch Wrestling alive. Well, thank you for watching, especially on Twitch. It's like I never know, who's on there. So thank you for commenting. Gridiron Masters, do you ever plan to start chapters? There's nothing in Texas. Yeah. So basically, the way the academy works is that once there's different levels. So more levels of proficiency, then you get the certification, almost like belts in jiu-jitsu, and a higher level of certification. You can still be coaching even at a lower level, but at least you're proficient at some of the foundational essential techniques. So yeah, it could be right? Henry Lopez. The big difference in amateur to catch is the stalemate. In amateur, you can work to a stalemate, but in catch, you have to wrestle out of the position regardless of time. A lot more applicable to no-gi, etc. Eileen gets good. If I were to have the option to train at a no-gi BJJ gym as well as a wrestling club with no submissions, would you recommend just doing the wrestling or working both in throughout the week? That is a very good question. I actually work out at at the MMA studio that I teach at. They do have amateur wrestling. I don't go to it, but I also teach at a. Actually, I would like Henry Lopez to kind of comment on this. Actually, I should have asked him during our interview, but hopefully you're still there, Henry. Because say like at the jiu-jitsu gym that I train at, they also have. I think they're having a couple days where they have amateur wrestling, whether it be a mix of folk style or just freestyle. I don't know. I'm not seeing it being as applicable to no-gi or even catch wrestling. Henry, if you're still there, have you done the amateur wrestling classes at Fight Science? And because I think you do well against some of the students in those classes, right? Like when they come to jiu-jitsu or whatever, or even our class, catch wrestling. Do you have any thoughts about that? In a way, like, so to answer your question, from my opinion, Eileen, I'd want you to still be aware of the submission holds. So not only just like I wouldn't want you to like just roll over onto your back and like be shrimping and doing everything from like guard and whatnot. I would still want you to try to wrestle, right, or at least try to be on top. Or if you end up being on bottom, you would go to what they would call turtle, or you become like more of a referee's position, referee's kind of defensive position, where you can get like not only back out from underneath, you can also try to set up your counter submissions too. So I think you could be doing those things much easier at a no-gi jiu-jitsu class as opposed to even doing a folk style or freestyle class. Eileen gets good. That is a great question. So let me read it. I know the 10th planet near me has wrestling day, but I'm concerned. It's just basically going to be a takedown class. Yes, this is another thing. A lot of people think that wrestling, the word itself, and you see it a lot when people talk about MMA, like, oh, someone's wrestling is really good. And a lot of times that just means their takedowns are really good. So Yeah, that would concern me too, Eileen. So yeah, we'll see. Again, it might even just be better to do the 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 just the straight up no-gi. At least that's kind of what I've been, or that's my opinion has been evolving or whatever, I guess. So that's how it is right now. So let me see. Henry Lopez. I have taken the wrestling class. It's definitely different, a lot more drilling from specific positions, single leg, etc., and a lot of live wrestling. Maybe that's just our gym though. Yeah, no, I think I think that's kind of how it goes. Like, yeah, it'll be a lot of that. Say drilling these different amateur wrestling positions. Not to say that they're not applicable in catch wrestling, because it would still be considered something that you can totally do in a catch wrestling match, but you might not be so cognizant of how you can be countered or submitted in a catch wrestling way. And that's kind of what I've seen a lot, like where even at the jiu-jitsu gym I train at, they some of the lower level belts, they get excited when they submit a wrestler, right? So um, I would say it's like they didn't necessarily submit a catch wrestler, right, or whatever, or like because of the amateur wrestling not being so cognizant of how people can counter them with a lot of submission holds. So Gridiron Masters. Wrestling is a dirty word where I train. It's eye rolling. Yeah. I think we're kind of on the same page with that. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a lot there in a way. Yeah. Hopefully you can find a no-gi place where people are more open-minded, and so you get some good training in, and they're not yelling at you too much if you play more defensively, or I'm not saying more defensively, but like where you kind of, instead of being chest to chest to somebody where you're on your back, you try to get out, or you can go to turtle or be more of a defensive, like referee's position, and you can do a lot of your counters from there. Hopefully they don't get too mad. Hopefully they're cool with that, and I think you should be fine. All right. Okay, so again, if anybody wants to so Eileen gets good. Do you have any recommendations for a good strength and conditioning program for catch wrestling? We actually do have one that my strength and conditioning coach put together. It's on our website, but a lot of it is doing. So I was also a trainer for UCLA back in the day. So I would train different students, and basically we have to train everyone there. But a lot of it is knowing how to do, like, how to lift weights in a way that are more specific to your sport. You don't necessarily have to be doing all these things like battle ropes and whatnot. You can, that's totally fine. But that would be like training your muscular endurance. But you also have to know how to train your like say like explosive power, or so you can always be doing these different types of training as well. But if you can just be doing the basics in the weight room right now, with squats for your legs, any kind of like push, so any chest press, any row, any shoulder press, any lat pull down, those things will really help you. It helps stabilize your shoulder joints, your hips, and your knees, but also stretching as well. So even if you find a yoga class you like, all that stuff's great. Big James Radio, RIP Gene, or RIP Gene LaBelle. Yes, and yeah, unfortunately he passed away. And yeah, thanks for bringing Gene up, because he was a big supporter of our first event, which was held at UCLA several years ago now. And Gene LaBelle, he provided prizes for the wrestlers. It was a small. I should have had, because he also gave patches. These really cool patches that were wrestling patches. So he gave me a ton of them. So I definitely have one. It's not. If I would have prepared properly, I would have been able to show you. But yeah, he definitely will be missed. And yeah, he does have a connection to us, and he was very supportive of what we were doing. So yes, it is very sad. Yeah, because he lived in Los Angeles, and so it's like I've lived here for many years, and I know a lot of different people. So it's like you kind of know other people who've worked with Gene, and so yeah, it becomes like this community. So it's like he's kind of like a part of the community. So yeah, it's very sad. All right, so with that being said, if you want to help support this channel, please support us by becoming a member on our YouTube channel. For those of you who want to train and get, like, say, certified through the Catch Wrestling Alliance, then please go to our website, catchwrestlingalliance.com, and become a member of the CWA Academy. On there, though, on our website, we also have really cool kind of one-off courses. The latest one was our Pressure Pass System Volume 1. Definitely want to get Pressure Pass System Volume 2 out sooner than later. So hopefully we can get that coming up. Also, again, for those of you who are students at UCLA, we will be starting not only like a Sanda Chinese kickboxing course. We have that. We also have the catch wrestling course as well. But then now I was asked if I could teach a Sanda catch wrestling mixed martial arts course. Plus, in there, one of the things I wanted to mention, speaking of different wrestling styles, was that on our channel, sometimes we'll talk about different wrestling styles that might not get so much attention, and most specifically, like sumo wrestling, right? They have a lot of really cool takedowns that are done really fast. But another style that is considered to be like the original style that kind of has the same rules virtually as sumo is Chinese wrestling. So the jacket wrestling. We also want to try to get a little bit more of a focus on that, because there is international competition in traditional Chinese wrestling, or it's referred to as shuai jiao in English, right? So we want to see if we can't do that. Maybe we can get a team for that, because they do international competitions in different cities around the world. Actually, I think the last world competition was here in California. It was in like San Francisco, I believe. But they do it in different cities and different countries. So it'd be cool to get a team going, because if you compete and win, then you can travel and whatnot. So I think that'll be great. I'd like to kind of build that up too. All right. So again, thanks everyone for watching and listening, like wherever you get your podcasts, or, watching on Twitch or YouTube. I personally appreciate all of it. And let's try to get some more matches going. All right. So thanks again. Hopefully everyone can, help us keep real wrestling alive. If you learn the style, it can only elevate your grappling. So think about it, and we appreciate all your support.